Good afternoon, B3L. It's Rotes DB here. Just wanted to get in a quick market update. Taking some spring break holidays here, so a little bit of a different schedule. But we're here. We're looking at the market. Lots going on. It's mostly driven by crypto and the crypto narrative here this Monday. But let's get into it. Let's review what's going on. I'm actually going to start off here by taking a look at crypto and mostly ETH and Bitcoin. Bitcoin leading the way. We can see here a really good, strong rally on Bitcoin over the last. Um, sorry, one second. Over the last day and a bit here. Good start into the overall week. I think the outflows have slowed down a little bit on the ETS and look a little bit better. A nice little spot to take a look at that is if you go over to DGens and take a look at crypto ETFs, you can see what the flows look like. So we were negative all last week. Put on a bit of a bearish sentiment for crypto in general, a bit of a really a pullback. But what it is GBTC here on those outflows are kind of the most impactful, but has scaled down. So I think the thought and the belief here is that this week should be back to the positive and start moving Bitcoin up a bit. So we'll look at that. That's going to possibly move crypto a bit faster. And in those events, we can see some floor price retracement uh, in ETH. Bitcoin ordinal is a little bit different. So we'll see as we look into to where markets are at. But ETH and Bitcoin up 5% on the day. Solana up 4.5%. Total market cap up 4.5%. So overall, pretty positive to the overall basis there. Taking a look, I did a lot of work on some of the Dune dashboard here. That one is saved out. There's Taryn. Now you're in. Um, so some work on this dashboard. It updates automatically once a day, but you can manually go in there with a free Dune account and hit run and refresh it at any moment in time that you would like. So that is there and available. This is just really what I use for the market overview on a regular basis. So you can see there's this pretty significant run down on volume for ETH NFTs. We've certainly felt that. Blur is also down and slowed down, which is interesting because that usually drives the most of the volume. But overall, ETH NFTs kind of slow. Still trading in that 0.8, 0.9 range for buyer to seller ratio. So still low there. Um, Buyer to sellers overall pretty low volume, in the 4,000 daily range for buyers, sellers. So unique traders is kind of low. Sales is on its way down. A lot of attention into obviously meme coins, and then there was a shift on base here recently, and then now we're looking at blast a bit here with the gold. So there's so many things driving attention at the moment, which makes things challenging and tough. I've shifted most of my focus to Bitcoin, just as a kind of a little bit more of a stable run here, as things are a little bit wild and unpredictable at the moment, with a close eye on what's happening for opportunities across NFTs. I haven't played a lot in the meme coin sector. Maybe worth gambling on a little bit here as kind of narratives arise, but it felt late to get into some of that stuff on the last push. There is some activity, on blast and base with that. Very fleeting overall. I think base has many kind of subpar meme coins popping up that don't last very long, and so there's that. Market share on Magic Eden, 4% range, daily buyers, and volume wise, as high as about 6%, 6.5%. So not gaining a ton of traction. Um, really not taking anything from Blur. Blur's being pretty consistent. It's eating into a bit of OpenSea, which is I think what we expected. Interesting to see that, but also I think positive to see that because it is going to be hard to chew into Blur given the incentivized trading and farming that goes on there that we battle on a regular basis, which we'll get to in a bit here. As like I said, I expanded on some of the tables and information in here. So daily active traders, 65, 7,500. 8,000's kind of been that range we've been here lately. Peak height in January, December was as high as 12, which is kind of similar to where ordinals have been. Ordinals have been in this 8 range. So down about 50% there. New buyers on a daily basis. These are new wallets essentially. 5 to 700. Pretty consistent. And daily activity average sale has dipped a bit. Now looking at the indexes, these are really what I look at the most here. I think these are really quite important for perspective. We're baseline, 99% of where we were 6 months ago on blue chips, which is crazy to think really because like I mean obviously we're down on some collections larger than others, and then we have some that have performed all right. I think pudgies help offset some of the dip in something like apes and et cetera, right? Uh, Overall on USD value, we're up still 200%, and we've got a bit of a relief rally here over the last little bit, but pretty much flat. First time in a bit, we see a positive week across the board. As we mentioned and talked about this last week's session, we talked about really being a really pivotal moment for NFTs, looking for a bounce, and then also looking for a bit of a value buy given the fact that there's this pullback in crypto, and that both kind of hit. So that's awesome to see and to have kind of talked about. And so we see a bounce in Pudgy's leading the way at 25%, Azuki 22%, V Friends with a bunch of activity and activations going on there. CloneX, Doodles. I mean, we looked at Azuki, Pudgies, and Apes. Apes are only up 2.4%, although they are in this kind of range of about 13 to 14 ETH that I think they're going to be stuck in for a bit. And then once we break above 14, then it'll be interesting. But there's also a bit of a blur kind of whale dump kind of narrative that still exists on Apes. Um, and so we'll see. And these two collections here, Apes and Moonbirds, are also really quite interesting given the fact of where the average buys exist on those collections. V Friends is kind of leading the way on the 30-day. Everything is still a down a fair bit in ETH value. Mid caps up 20% ETH and up 270%, 2.7x in ETH. So that's good. That mid caps have really been what's held the best overall. Screen just went black. There we go. Remelios have been consistently strong there for the most part, and we have a few winners over the 30-day. Gutter Cat, Avatars, On-Chain Monkey, Sproto Gremlins, and Remelio Babies. So this is where I spent my work. Had some pretty good feedback last week's session to add some particular elements in here. I did get it all into this table. I might separate some of this stuff out when it comes to what is going on. So kind of the key elements I have in here, I've added in average buy, which I think is really interesting. Also a bit telling. I think it plays into some of the bits there. So you can kind of see, and there's always multiple elements that play into this, but when you look at Bored Ape Yacht Club here, average buy 46 ETH, current floor 13.5 ETH. Buys traded within the last 365 days, only 27%. When you're down significantly, there becomes little value in making that sale. So I think that's what makes apes maybe a little bit more sticky. Um, and it's this average buy here that kind of makes that hold to be the case. So that's kind of interesting. So some interesting elements there. You can kind of see like so for instance, Milady up on the average buy, possible when there is a rally that there's some sell off on profit taking that can occur there. Um, and then you can see there's a lot more of them have traded over the last year or 90 days. 90 days is kind of around that year to date mark, which I thought was an interesting mark in there. So just kind of to see the amount of NFTs that are actually trading. And then I have in here bid buyers, the amount that are held via bid blur bids, which are essentially considered maybe the least sticky buys, right? So most you wouldn't expect wanting to hold these long term. I'm kind of thinking I wouldn't mind adding in some kind of holding duration on this, but this maybe should be a bit of a focused chart. So, for instance, if I were to take a look at this and say, okay, um, have a table based on blur bids only, and how long have they been held, and does that give me a bit of a different tell on the picture of them? Because what I want to see is what collections are maybe more at risk of being dumped on, or anything like that. Most of these, nothing too. They're I mean they're pretty similar across the board. To be honest, there isn't a lot that I'm picking up on this overall. Um, the higher collections have less bid buyers as natural, that sort of thing. So there isn't a lot I'm reading into this initially. Maybe some of this average buy, and maybe that means a bit more to where the collection basis is. But we're going to continue to massage this. All of this is sortable, right? So if we wanted to look at it and say, okay, what has the most blur bids, we can sort it and see that it is, and there actually looks like a bit of an issue. Oh, good thing I did that. So some of these collections, contract address, these look to be likely a contract address for something like art drops or art blocks, and things like that, or they're grouped into one collection contract. So I'll have to kind of move that out. That kind of stuff is a little bit tricky to pull out. But if we go down, maybe there's a lot of these. So not easily sorted. I'll work on that, clean it up. I'm gonna pause for a second. Got a few here within the voice. Any questions, comments? What's going on? Um, Happy to have you here. I know it's a little bit of a different schedule. I have an appointment that's kind of got overbooked on this that I can't miss. I am on holidays right now, which is also nice. So gonna do some yard work, housework, get my to-do list done. But yeah, what is going on? Gonna dive into something like degens. I think is a good way to get an overview. One of the more interesting narratives here is some of the ordinal collections that are now exceeding market cap. So NodeMunk's uh, market cap had exceeded Bored Ape Yacht Club, and the same had gone with Bitcoin Puppets had exceeded Mutant Yacht Club. Interesting, to say the least. There's still, I think, a decent amount of energy on ordinals. A bit of a relief bounce overall on ordinals. So if we look at ordinals, they are more green than I think you'd see on ETH. There's only really a few main drivers on ordinals. I think Runestone has been pretty interesting on the kind of like a meme token side of things. A lot of airdrops kind of coming to the Runestone side of things, so it's interesting. I think there's certainly a move there. Puppets continue to impress. Puppets, nodes, and OMB, I think are really probably sorry cats, although cats have kind of been a little quieter of late. But those are the big four. Looking to inks and the inks drop coming up. I think the art and everything that is around there plays pretty well, and I think it's one of the more exciting drops coming up for ordinals and ETH in general. So that's a collection that I'm waiting for. I think there's probably going to be a move there. But then other than that, there's not a lot. I think you want to stick to those main collections. But when Bitcoin is going through this kind of bullish run here, if it closes and holds above 69K, I think in a lot of ways, I'm holding my Bitcoin and Bitcoin versus playing on ordinals. You know, if you look back at some of the runs, and sure, ordinals have ran well with Bitcoin, but that there's no direct correlation there, at least believed. So I'd rather take that run on Bitcoin. Now it could be a thing where ordinals run with it, and you miss out on some of that, but it's still preserving Bitcoin just to me seems like much more of what I prefer to do. Anyways, risk tolerance wise, right? And then on ETH, a bit of a relief bounce this last week, and some positive here on the daily. But as we mentioned, we're up, 5%. 5% isn't. I mean, that's in that range where you get a pretty good run, and you're going to get some retracement on floor prices for NFTs. So um, we'll get into some TA here in Parsec. This was this has always been pretty helpful to look at collections in this basis. Um, Sometimes this is tricky to move. So we've got this channel drawn here right in this 13 to 14 ETH range. So this is where rapes sit. Last week we were right here looking for this kind of bounce bit, and we got that up to the line, retrace, probably moving back up towards the line. Want to see that break out above this 14 ETH, 14.2 ETH range before really get positive on apes. But there's some moving average resistance, etc. So apes still have some range to go, but that time is going to happen, I think. And we're probably looking to move right back up to that, possibly that 20 ETH range, 21 ETH range when that time comes. So there is going to be a nice move there, but it's not yet. Um, Pudgies, Pudgies, we're looking at this resistance break over at 10 ETH. So that happened, and then that became your entry point there, all the way up to 15. Now a bit of a retracement back here to 12, but you could likely see this continuation off of this kind of retracement at 12, uh, back up to possibly 15. So watching that, of course, you got this ETH run narrative that could slow this down and pull it back all the way back down to 10.5. So a little bit of uncertainty there, but this candle going green could be a positive here. So because you get that kind of like that 50% retracement there off of that move up. So I I would say overall that this is a riskier entry here. Ladies kind of look like they're in this downtrend still. You might get a bit of a move up here and then continuation on that downtrend. Support in this three and a quarter range, but again, kind of a bit negative there. So, if I'm looking at the general trend across collections here, there's a few that are a little bit more uncertain than positive. So, uh, it's interesting to where we were last week. I think again, if I were to kind of pair this with anything, a crypto rally here would would be the result of that. I mean, if I were being optimistic on mutants, maybe we're getting a little mini cup and handle, maybe. Um, Except I think you want it to be up at this 2.63 to really form it properly. Um, Otherwise, we're looks like in a this continued downtrend. So I would suspect that mutants go back possibly 2 ETH here. And then break above here and move up. So what I would look for there. Pudgy's moving slow. Here we go. Pudgy's look very similar to what we're seeing on mutants. Oops. Not quite the same fit per se. Right? You could say that we've broken above, but it's quite easy to just adjust and draw it here as well. So, if I had this line initially, it would come down right here, and we broke out of that, and now it could look at it being a retracement support. Little Pudgy's in this 1 ETH range isn't too bad. I think there's should be some historical support there too. I mean, price wise, they hold. I think 1/10 kind of idea. So to me, they seem like they're probably a little undervalued compared to where Pudgies are. Um, so interesting one. I would put another possible support around 1 ETH, and then look to see. It's not 1 ETH provides more resistance and support, to be honest. I think it goes there. Pause for a second. Any thoughts, questions, anything that anyone wants to look at? Hopefully a bit of a bottom out here on Moonbirds. Looks like this 0.7 range has provided some consolidation. Would watch that. Look for some kind of move bounce out for them. I'm not overly optimistic in general for Moonbirds and where they're at within the Yuga ecosystem, etc. This could be a long form um, kind of formation here, and we're only halfway through some more consolidation for maybe another couple weeks before you look to move out of it here. So probably just some look for it to hold really this level and go from there. I think we looked at DeGods last time and looked at them as being maybe a bit of a value. I can't recall if we charted anything on there. Welcome, Bulla. Appreciate you being here. Yeah, I don't know. Mic wise, fair enough if you can't get in there. Yeah, I mean, what I try to base a lot of this off of is taking the kind of the general NFT crypto kind of market macro. I spent a lot of time listening to some other spaces, etc., and getting a general idea consensus of what's going on, and that helps kind of gather my thoughts on where the market's at. And then from there, it's we use the B3L Dune dashboard here. This is what I use for my spaces and general market analysis. And then you know I've been finding that the TA analysis has been quite effective, and so really been spending a lot of time on these sessions looking through the general collections, trying to get a gauge of where projects are overall. And I think that there's a lot of um, uh, almost consistency across projects when you look at this, where it you start to see these trends emerge where you see general overall positive or negative sentiment on NFTs, and it plays out pretty well there. Um, yeah, so you can kind of see here most collections looking a bit more bearish technically than they were last week. Last week it looked like we were at key levels and possible bit of a breakout. DeGods, bit of a bounce here off of this low point. I think we were right up in here last week. And so we move up, hit this long-term trend, likely to move back down, possibly retest 1.25, and then we'll see if that bounce comes. You know, if it does, I think it's a really positive retest, right? Because then you start to form this kind of as we like to call it back in the day, the Wu-Tang double bottom, but this double bottom and then bounce up, which could be a pretty positive move on DGODs. So that one's kind of interesting to me. I would wait a few more days. A 1.25 entry, I think, is something that could be pretty good. It's always challenging. It's always interesting with Frank and the timeline narrative, and kind of a bit polarizing and what's being delivered, etc. But where DGODs are at to where they were, I think that's one of the more interesting high upside plays on the ETH NFT side of things. Captains Azuki is another one. Azuki apes, I think, are really the kind of were the most interesting collections over the last while, and in terms of what they were producing technically, and also being two of the major collections in the space. Oops. So I always watch them very closely. Captains at an interesting spot here. I think they're at this 3.5. I think they back up to going to be ranging here maybe a bit. I would look for captains to break 3.8 before any entry here, but it looks like they could be pulling out of that. So watching that one. And then Azuki. Both Azuki and Apes, though, were on this really long-term trend that played out quite interesting. Really kind of told the slip in ETH NFTs through the two of them. Azuki in the midst of a breakout above some resistance here. So I think this is quite positive for Azuki. 4.5 upside around 5 ETH, maybe a bit of a bounce, and you could form a bit of a mini cup and handle here, which would be a pretty positive spot there. So Azuki's quite interesting here at this range. But I would suspect that we go like this. This is what we'd like to see for him. And then up from there. Not sure why I got these double horizontal lines here on Azuki. This one is not necessary. But again, a collection that is, really at its general floor overall at this 3.5 ETH range, and has produced a pretty good move from there. Kenpai is a bit more challenging to read. I think we're in this 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 downtrend right now that um, likely continues for a bit, probably down to this 1.9 range. It's always interesting that these ranges fall just below kind of these fixed numbers. So if you're looking at 2, 1.9 is where it goes, etc. I think that's a nature of Blur farming activity. So you might have your floor list at 2, but then your bid activity comes in at 1.9, and then that's where it kind of starts to form that floor, even though really it's that 2 ETH kind of mental spot that happens. So it always happens just below. But if you're buying um, directly off of the floor, then you're probably at this 2 ETH range. So be interesting. Probably could be seeing another move of consolidation here on KenPi for a bit, and then I think it's back up for there. So Doodles has seen some momentum lately, really going into the NFT NYC and Project Gray. So interesting to see that. Nice little bounce off of 1.5, which is past kind of good support level. And then, so we get that bounce, just a bit of a retracement. Looks like we could go back, push towards this 2 ETH mark on Doodles. That's what we'd look for. But we need to see a positive green candle on that. Otherwise, it's back down. But I think, the narrative of NFT NYC and yeah, the next couple of weeks, that one is one that could be positive. Be interesting. I don't know if that's a sell the news type event for Doodles. Not sure. Um, I don't feel that there's any inclination that this is going to be anything on the larger picture stuff that's coming out from Doodles quite yet. I feel like that kind of that whole side of it is going to take some time to play out, and it's going to take whether it's the music experience from Pharrell, etc., or if there's like a music slash video kind of experience that comes out from the animation studio, that I think is still going to be dragged out a bit. But that could start to build some serious momentum for Doodles. So we'll watch to see how that comes. But I think this is just going to be a Project Gray, a bit of a teaser to it. I don't know. I have a hard read on it, but the team seems to be pretty excited about it. So we'll see. It's when I've called these previous bounces on Doodles. It hasn't happened. So we'll see. Um, it could be a down, but you got to see that green candle form off of this. But general momentum has been trending up. Although, if you look at it here, let's take one more look. This line down off of here. So we did break above. That could be support going down. Interesting. Thanksy, what's going on?
Up. I'm just listening, looking up some things in the background.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all I can say, there's an NDA in place.
What's that? Sorry.
There's an NDA in place, cooking up things in the background right now.
Nice. Love it. It's awesome.
Yeah. How's the? Are you looking at mostly NFTs now? No crypto. What's the crypto situation?
Well, the crypto situation, I think, is we had that kind of that retracement that put everyone into a bit of a brief moment of panic. Everything kind of went bearish on the timelines a bit there. But this current rally, I think, is gonna likely shift the things back to whether it's back to Solana, etc. So, in my opinion, I think crypto is much more positive than NFTs at the moment, and it probably will be for a bit of time here until we get some kind of form of ranging. So, um, I I have been playing around the ideas of trying to allocate a small percentage and play kind of the the lottery sports gambling kind of side of things when you look at shit coins and just play a small bag towards some of them and play it out a bit here. So I'm going to be paying attention to what's happening. Obviously, there's been this kind of base uh, coin run that happened for a bit. That's probably going to cool off. Blast seems to be getting some attention with this kind of gold drop that's going on, but it really feels like Blast has really got everyone on the hamster wheel. And unless you're there and active, if you're there and active, I think there's probably some decent farming returns, just like what happened with Blur, but it's going to take probably a lot of effort. So one thing that kind of highlights that is that you got your blast points, great, but now you need your gold to help provide a multiplier on your blast points. So without gold, your blast points aren't worth as much. So um, yeah, I think the ease of activity on shitcoins, etc. I think that's still going to be um, pretty good, pretty interesting. So, but
Mm.
the general crypto macro looks pretty good, and that's going to drive some good activity. So, uh, excited for that.
Yeah. What do you see? Anything on the base side for NFTs, or is it nothing yet?
There was some activity on Blast NFTs for some of the gold drops. Um, Base NFTs, I haven't paid any attention to there. I mean, it's just you know, both of them. They're like a subset of a subset of a subset kind of thing. Where you know, uh, to me right now, it's still just the big three. Um, and Ordinals has seen the most kind of get for the most part lately, and then a little bit of sprinkled in for ETH and Solana. So I think if you're really digging NFTs at the most part, I think Ordinals are still one to watch, but there's just a few collections there, right? Just
Hmm.
the big four, I think, are really it. Um, but yeah, the smaller sections, etc. I I would lend more to be just playing shit coins in that scenario versus anything else. I think that's your best casino kind of return. Um, but the
Oh,
idea
for
with that
sure.
is just to play the small bags, play several bets, and kind of go with it that way. Is kind of going to be the approach. And like I said, I think that's something that I'm going to um, try to be on top of for this kind of what I would perceive to be the next kind of cycle back to it.
Yeah. I mean, if this the liquidity is there, it's so much easier to trade, right? Instead of
Yeah.
individually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would suspect it comes back to Solana again. Now that crypto is back and positive, I think we see some of those existing ones and some new ones kind of move off of
Hmm.
it. So
Yeah. Interesting pullback. It really wiped some people out for sure.
yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it was overly expected by a lot of people, right? Um, once you break that all-time high, it felt like okay, we're we're off to the races. But you know, look at back some of the past historicals, and you typically got that kind of 1 to 2 week of retracement before kind of that overall move up. But then it was expected. Okay, we're going to range. Today's run says we're not ranging, so uh, we'll see. We'll see where things kind of move out here. I think not until we re-break all time high do we are we out in the clear yet. So, and even then, like
Mhm.
it could just dump again and
Could
retrace
just like
is
rip.
yeah, yeah, it's pretty volatile overall. So I think you kind of place your bet and ride through it. I think if you listen to some of the the major crypto traders and stuff like that, is the idea is just stay spot and don't risk up too much, and you'll be fine because the overall macro is quite positive for crypto. So um, that's probably the safest way to move.
Right.
I
The
mean,
the
there's still
leverage trading definitely wipes you out.
yeah, yeah, right. So I mean, if you're leveraging with a small bag, then sure, I guess you can kind of gamble that a bit, but yeah, it can swing sideways in a hurry. But like, if you look at the overall long-term macro, next couple years, and you're expecting, Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, all, possibly in the range of 5x, like what more do you need kind of thing, right? So it depends on, I mean, it depends where you are too, right? Like degens are going to degen, right? So, and actually that's one that kind of is quite interesting right now is Warpcast, Forecaster, degen token. There's still a decent amount of spin around that. So that one I think is interesting. It's tough. There's so much going on. There's so much that pulls your attention that you can kind of almost be in your own little bubble and still find a way to be you know in an interesting spot.
What's the next meta? Is it still meme coins? What's gonna be the next things that pop, you think?
I I think we're going back to meme coins. I think we
You
had
think
a bit
meme
of a
coins are here
cool
to stay?
yeah. I think there's been a bit of a call on altcoin season and altcoin super cycle and you know Bitcoin dominance slowing down. And so if that is the case, then you could see altcoins and meme coins continue to really rally. So I don't think we're out of meme coins by any means. We had that slowdown off of Solana and kind of bit of a brief cycle into base, but I think we go back to Solana and play in the meme coins. Um, as long as we're not doing this, um, what is it? The pre-farm meta. Just sending to addresses. I think that's a terrible way to go about it. But um, yeah, I would look for meme coins through this next bit still as crypto's moving up, and then keep a close eye on ordinals, um, because they they still seem to be chugging along pretty well. Um, the ruins drop was quite successful, and now there's been secondary drops to ruins holders, um, and the main collections on Bitcoin have continued to perform really well. The only other main collections coming out that are maybe pause some liquidity is inks and wizards when they drop, but otherwise it's kind of open season for momentum to continue on ordinals. So um, you know these times that we get some pullback, probably the ideal time to look at some of the top collections. But yeah, I think ordinals are still where the the most success is in NFTs at the moment.
Yeah, just with the Bitcoin pricing.
I mean, it's hard though. Like, could you like spending a third of a Bitcoin on an NFT versus just holding the Bitcoin is still something hard to separate. Like when you have your Bitcoin, it's hard to separate yourself from the Bitcoin. And I think there's an interesting bit that a lot of the ordinals holders are ETH NFT uh, individuals that have moved over. So that makes sense where you're not quite as attached to the Bitcoin. Um, but I think there's still a decent amount of interest there. Be curious to see how halvening impacts everything for ordinals. I think there could be some impact there, whether that's a inscription cost basis or transactional cost, or if there's any impact that happening. So I'm not sure how that plays in, but I would watch for that.
Can you pull up the Node Monkeys chart again? I want to see. Can you do it by USD or no? Or is it only by Bitcoin?
You might be able to do it on DGens by USD. I'll try hit it up there that way. This I've been having troubles with Magic Eden pulling up charts lately. It does this like glitch out thing. Um, this is bull. I thought it was
Yeah,
just
it's been
mobile.
doing that for a few days. It's freaking
Yeah,
frustrating as hell. I've just been moving over to DGen just to look at stuff because it does that flickering crap every freaking time.
I know. I thought it was a mobile thing because I pull it up a lot on mobile. I was like, okay, that's just mobile, but yeah, I see it's on desktop just as well. And of course, they don't have the integration with TradingView for ordinals yet. Um, but yeah, it's a little hard. Yeah, let's go to DGens on that one. I think DGens does have it, doesn't it? Not have the TradingView. So still in a bit of a downtrend for node monks. We got this relief bounce, but there we go. Everything's just cruising. Um, I have a hard stop, so I'm going to have to stop it here. Node monk entry wise, the week isn't a very good one to look at.
No, you can't do it by USD.
Yeah, I can. Can I not? There we go.
Mhm.
Pretty similar. I mean, with USD, it looks a little bit looks
It
more
looks
positive.
flatter.
Yeah, it looks flatter. It looks like you're in more of a potential uptrend. In Bitcoin, I think I would look at it as more of a potential downtrend off this latest spot here. So curious to see how that plays out. 0.5, I think, is the ideal re-entry into node monks if you can find it. I don't know if we see back to 0.3 again, but they tend
What's
to
the
be the
what's the
leading
what's the
platform.
utility of Node Monkeys? Node Monks? Nothing, right? It's just the art.
They're the punks of Bitcoin. That's their utility. Of course they're not, but yeah, that's really it. I think you're gonna get drops like ruins, etc. So airdrop meta seems to be pretty strong on Bitcoin, but otherwise no, there isn't really any particular meta or thing. There is most collections on ordinals are exactly that. I'd say that quantum cats and wizards are one that's building. Um, Everything else just seems to be vibes. But yeah, I'm gonna call it here. I might be able to do something midweek. Like I said, I'm on vacation here for a couple weeks, so I might be able to jump in and do some more as time goes on. Whatever I can get away with from the wife, but we'll see from there. Thanks for joining, and yeah, I'll post the video here shortly, and we'll see how things go.
Uh, Thanks, Rhodes. Appreciate it.
Cheers, guys. Yeah, take care.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And thanks, Bola, for showing up. Any feedback, whatever, just drop it in chat. Appreciate it.